Hello and welcome to another AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. Now, you'll notice there's only two of us this time around. Graeme McDonald has got a little bit of a lurg well down country, so get well soon, Graeme. And thusly, this episode will be far shorter and without the usual waffle. We'll get through this one really quick, like concise journalists-ish people. Yeah.
What's concise mean? What's journalism?
I think it's somewhere in your job description.
Okay.
Somewhere. Anyway, let's get on with the rap sheet that we've got here, or the run rap sheet. That's the rap run sheet that's been prepared by journalist Hanson, and kick through some news. And we'll start off with the government making it more expensive to be a dealer. MB has gone and raised the fees for various items that are involved in the life of a motor vehicle dealer. Matthew, can you run through a few of those numbers for us?
Yeah, sure thing. So they've cited, and this was following some public consultation, that they needed to raise their fees in order to cover their own costs, and in fear of other potential. I guess the amount of people that they have on the job being reduced, and the dangers of more unregistered people being out there in the world as a result. So I guess to summarize, pricing, as it stands, whether you're an individual, whether you're a company, you pay just over $400 to become a registered trader. That number is now out the window. So they've brought forward this tiered system, which comes into effect on August 1, which is not very far away at all. And so individuals now pay $432. This is not including GST. None of these numbers include GST. And they also pay $401 for annual renewal for individuals. Companies' registration is now $863 and $802 annual renewal. So factoring in GST costs on top of that, as well as the Motor Vehicle Disputes Tribunal levy, which has gone up by a factor of about 100%. It's now just over $200. At the end of all of that, if you're an individual and you're registering, the total cost, including GST, is now $738. And if you're a company, it's now $1,233. And the prices are actually fairly close to that, fairly similar to that, for annual renewal once you factor in GST as well. So, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a pill for a few people to swallow, but this has been sort of in the works for a few months.
Yeah, and look, this is going to come off as a bit of a rant, but it's just not good enough. I mean, there's a couple of aspects to this. Is that becoming a dealer is far too cheap and far too easy. And I think there's so many dealers that agree with me on that. The bar is just so low. And sure, raise the prices, but do it on a basis where someone's actually getting anything for it. And the other factor with this MB charging is, as we've covered off in AutoTalk multiple times, the amount of enforcement going on by MB has dropped massively in recent years, and particularly through the COVID period, where it seems, because they share enforcement teams with other divisions, that people that should be enforcing the motor vehicle industry are actually off enforcing other stuff, and that's just not good enough. Dealers pay for the stuff, the community needs it, and do better, MB, do better. Yeah, there was a dealer that we dealt with last year, a dealer that made a threat against me, and they have had multiple run-ins with very clear issues in regards to their trading, and MB just lets them go every time. And I'm over it, MB. I'm over it. You need to do better. Not good enough. Don't raise your fees unless you're going to do something about it. Spend the money where it needs to be spent. Anyway, carrying on, and where some of this money supposedly. It was quite ranty. No, but it's true. You run back through AutoTalk over the last year, and there's multiple cases multiple bits of evidence where MB just hasn't been doing what it used to. And it isn't good enough, and it's not good enough to be in a situation where you're being accused of that and then go and raise the prices. That's just silly. But to the flip side, they should raise the prices because it should be harder to become a dealer. There should be some barrier to working out whether you are a bona fide business person with some actual capital behind you to back what you sell before you can become a dealer. But anyway, moving on to a dealer who has been through the tribunal, who's got away before they had to pay that extra fee, is Hamilton EV dealers being forced to pay a customer $24,000 to. Well, look, I love it when these headlines say they've been forced to pay it. The deal's been rejected, so they've got to hand the vehicle back as part of that deal. So a plug-in vehicle specialist dealership in Hamilton has been ordered by the Motor Vehicle Disputes Tribunal to pay a customer $24,045 after engaging in misleading conduct. Hamilton Electric Vehicles Limited sold a 2016 Nissan ENV200 van to a customer in October last year. The two parties undertook a hearing with the Disputes Tribunal in May. Tribunal documents state that the customer believed the dealer misrepresented both the vehicle's battery state of health, the size of the clean car discount rebate he would receive with the vehicle's purchase, the capability of the vehicle's charging cable, and the size of the warranty. Now, let's run through a few things on this. This is silly, and this dealer should know better, because the tribunal has warned many times before that just quoting the state of health is an issue when it comes to selling vehicles. The Leaf Spy, they came out with some evidence of Leaf Spy. The answer comes on depending on what phone you were using and all these other things. It sounds to me like it's just a case of a bit of a gap when it was first tested and when it was sold, and when then the customer sold it. But other than this, it was just a bit of a mess of a deal by the sounds of it. Sounds like they failed to deliver a charger that was offered. They say the customer may have left it out. And they said the rebate was $4,000 instead of $3,400. If you are dealing in used electric vehicles, the biggest thing you need to understand is that how you sell them is more important than what you're selling, and that training your staff to properly explain the issue of battery degradation and potential range is really important. So often, more often than not, these deals fall apart not because the customer has not got what they bought, or the car's not doing what it should do, but that they had a higher expectation of what they should be getting and what they should do. And yeah, I mean, this one's a bit of a tricky one. I don't think the dealer went that far wrong, but it's they should know probably the ways to get around this stuff, and doing basic things like misquoting a subsidy and so forth on an electric vehicle. I get misquoting a subsidy on a hybrid or something where it changes day to day or week to week depending on what the NZTA is feeling like. But yeah, that's not the case. Is that similar to your take on this deal, Matthew?
Yeah, I guess so. This is my first time sort of talking about Leaf Spy and the way that works. So that was something that I thought was quite curious. Is that something that has sort of I guess first off, I agree. It is a little bit it's firm, but also that's a mistake you really shouldn't be making. We've been selling EVs. Well, EVs have been fairly mainstream in New Zealand now for several years, and particularly with the number that come in as imports, it should be fairly commonplace by now, especially if you're a dealership that's specializing in plug-in things. But in terms of Leaf Spy, so how does that work? Is that sort of similar to a diagnostic thing?
You plug in OBD, plug a Bluetooth OBD unit into the OBD port, and you get a read on the battery. I mean, I think if you're going to quote Leaf Spy reports, you need to be probably very clear about what date they were taken, conditions they were undertaken in, and to be honest, if you think the customer's going to be funny about it, then get the customer to do their own on the spot before you sign the deal. Is probably my suggestion. Get them done independently. It's too delicate reporting your own. I believe there are testing services that will give you a battery report, either from a franchise dealer or through, I believe, some of the testing agencies actually offer tests now. I think quoting your own Leaf Spy stuff as a final part of the deal is just getting too delicate to do and too problematic there. So in this case, I don't think the dealer went too far wrong, but this is an EV specialist. They should understand these kind of issues and avoid them. Sticking with EVs, the Transport Minister has been told that a national EV charging strategy is needed urgently. Drive Electric members have told Transport Minister Michael Wood that plans for a national EV charging strategy need to be accelerated in parallel with the growth of the national electric fleet. As 27 new vehicles sold every month now have a plug. The Drive Electric Board hosted Minister Wood at his first members' evening of 2022, where he presented his report and findings from EVS 35, the International Electric Vehicle Symposium in Oslo. We're reaching a fairly sizable plug-in fleet now, aren't we, with you?
Yeah, I've actually kind of been counting down the days for Drive Electric to release a press release declaring that that national fleets exceeded 50,000 vehicles. I'm sure that's pretty close, and that's just going to be more evidence that supports this point that we need to be doing more for charging. Over the weekend, I went on a wee little holiday down to Tauranga and was given the opportunity, as you know, to take an EV or to take an internal combustion vehicle, and
Because I gave you the opportunity.
thank you, Richard. But I did take the internal combustion vehicle. It's school holidays, and everything I've seen online is that there is a lot of congestion at these places during these sorts of times of the year. Um, I think we're buoyed this week to see the deal between ChargeNet and the AA, which happened earlier this week. But I'm not sure that's that's great, but it's one piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there needs to be some form of strategy, though. I do think the commercial side of the market is taking things along at a reasonable pace. I think we're about to see like another wave from charging installations. And you got Open Loop and others who are really trying to kick in now. But no, a coordinated strategy is definitely needed. Now, market growth for Suzuki in spite of supply chain issues. Suzuki New Zealand enjoyed market growth in 2022, exceeding its 2017 total by 871 units, in spite of its challenging supply chain, and the brand is aiming for 7,900 sales in 2022. Constrained supply of the Vitara and Swift hybrid and sport models has not affected overall growth in 2022, and it should be bolstered by the arrival of an all-new S-Cross SUV with Suzuki New Zealand, which Suzuki New Zealand believes will sell in the same volumes as the Nissan Qashqai. Now, not to be mean to Suzuki, that S-Cross is bloody ugly, but it'll keep selling. Because grandmas and fleets love that thing.
It is less ugly than the old one, though, Richard. I think we must agree. It's not pretty, but the old one, was not a fan.
Mm-hmm. Now, interestingly, and sticking on the EV theme, there was some conjecture around that vehicle launch about Suzuki saying that basically their clients are too poor to buy EVs. That's a tricky area. I'm not sure that's the wording they used. I think that was a journalist taking it a little far, but yeah,
it's a hard one because we are. There's probably no other way to put it. We're years away from an EV that's going to be for sale locally. That's mid 30,000, high 20s, low 30s, and that's where a lot of Suzuki customers play. If you look at the Swift, the Jimny, the Baleno, they're all priced in that area, and they're the best selling models that they offer.
I guess the point is that they're probably some of their big volume stuff is in Vitara and S-Cross, and those are cars that are in the mid 30s. Drive away or sometimes higher, and you look at say a MGZS, which is basically 42 grand drive away EV. So I think you're right. I think it's a hard argument to make.
It's hard, and what makes it harder to just sort of buy that it's a sort of good faith argument is that Suzuki hasn't necessarily shown that it's taking these steps to prepare for this to be the thing to make this the reality one day. It obviously hasn't got an electric vehicle in its range. They've said that they're developing one, but there's very little evidence of a timeline of where that vehicle's going to come. I highly doubt we're going to be seeing anything on the road this year from them in that regard. Maybe in the future. I know they offer plugins in other markets. They have a Toyota RAV4 plug-in hybrid that's rebadged as a Suzuki in Europe, but we don't get those, and nor do we get a lot of the hybridized versions of standard cars. We have the hybrid Swift, but that's one of the few.
Well, they are part of that group with Toyota and Subaru developing electric platforms, so we'll see what comes. Look, this is just going to be the EV wrap today, I think. Ford aims for electric Maverick and Ranger Utes. Now, Mr. Tom Clancy, the PR person from Ford, I leaned on him a little bit about this week, and he was not forthcoming for any information. Ford in Europe have sought protection of the name Maverick Lightning and Ranger Lightning. So that would indicate perhaps that there are Lightning versions coming for their electric Utes, which would be great. A electric Ranger would be amazing for the New Zealand market. To quote Mr. Clancy, Ford trademarks all sorts of things. It doesn't necessarily mean anything is in development. Clancy says, judging from the demand in the US, they can't build the F-150 Lightning fast enough, and we get numerous emails a week asking for that. And there is no intention to build that in right-hand drive. So, I mean, look, there's lots of rumors floating around. There's a plug-in hybrid Ranger. But the discussion is, and someone had it to me off as a bit of a side comment recently, was that in the market now, with the way plugins are going, is that maybe Ford will just skip the plug-in hybrid and go straight to full electric for the Ranger. It wouldn't be. I actually don't think it would be that hard. You know, it's not hard to put a battery in between the rails of a Ute, and there's plenty of off-the-shelf components now you could buy for drivetrains. For example, I believe Dana, who is a very massive supplier in the automotive component space, has released a electric axle specifically set up for light trucks like the Ranger. So who knows? I don't think that one's going to be far away. Us hearing something, if they're that far down the track, yeah, I think an electric Ranger would sell.
I think it would too, and of course, Ford has talked about releasing an electrified Ranger of some kind this year, or revealing it, and most of that is plug-in hybrid. But I think there would be good reason to skip that entirely and just go straight to dedicated plug-in. Plug-in hybrids aren't cheap yet. They, in terms of hybrid prices, they've almost achieved parity with pure petrol vehicles generally. Toyota, I think, is a great example of that. But plug-in hybrids, you're still generally paying a fairly stiff premium for them, no matter which brand you go for. So from a cost perspective, there may be some pretty big benefits there if Ford just decides to do it.
Yeah. Now, last through the day, and again, electric, JSC battery-powered trucks coming for New Zealand. Specialist vehicle importer and distributor BLK Auto NZ is registering the first JAC battery-powered trucks with trials set to begin in Auckland. The company has signed a formal agreement to distribute the JAC range of battery electric trucks ahead of trials with major logistics companies. 2 JAC N55 EV models are currently in Auckland, with a further 10 trucks en route for distribution and sale, which are expected to arrive in New Zealand in the coming months. Now, I also understand JAC have indicated they've got a Ute coming, which they say will be ANCAP 5-star in diesel form first, but I understand there may be an electric version of that Ute as well. So, yet again, another little electric hint for the Ute market. That truck is appearing at the E-Road Fleet Day next week on the 20th in Hamilton. Go to eroad.co.nz, I think, if you want more information on that. And someone's actually driving it down. So I'm driving that electric truck down to Hamilton. So that'll be fun. Does 180 kilometres, so that should 180 to 200 kilometres, so it should make it quite easily, depending on how much beer we chuck in the back. Might even need to get out there to photograph it, Matthew.
Oh, I'm sure I could be obliged. I mean, if you do, I think that'll just about be the third photo shoot with some sort of electric vehicle you've had me do in a fairly short space of time for a corporate, on the corporate side. Recently I did one for FedEx with their LDV van, E-Deliver 9. So it's obvious that these cars are starting to have, or these vehicles are starting to have, fairly decent penetration. We've seen LDV with numerous brands now, and Mitsubishi have obviously been bringing in e-canters as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Those e-canters are getting around central Auckland. So there's just EV moves everywhere. So I think that's it for this week. I think next week we'll promise to have way less EV content. And we'll Matthew prepares the list for these things. So that's on you, Matthew.
Hey, to be fair, there isn't a lot of new car stuff out there that isn't EV these days. There's not a lot of new
car news then.
Used car, sure, but not a lot of new car stuff. There's not a lot of new V8s and things like that. I'm sure we'll have the new Civic Type R article whenever that comes out. I think that's being released this month, and a few others are, but it's fairly slim pickings.
Is it electric?
I thoroughly doubt it. I think it'll be thoroughly doubt it. That'll be a big song and dance swan song petrol 4-cylinder turbo. I'm fairly sure. If it's not, I'll I don't know. I'll eat one of these Tamika model cars on stream.
Right. Well, we will look forward to that. So thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, like and subscribe and all that. Make sure you go and jump on and like the or follow the AutoTalk page on LinkedIn. We're doing a lot more through there. And of course, this can be watched through Facebook, YouTube, all those things. 10 o'clock Fridays. We will be back live next week with Graeme McDonald, hopefully. And we will catch you all then. Thank you so much for joining us, Matthew.
Cheers.